thank you for joining us, Tiki.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, our conversation really is going to, I want to tell your story in a different way.
Okay.
Because I'm a little bit where you have partnered up with in the book that features your story.
Well, in this particular book that we're talking about is the Breakthrough book, and it's Johnny Wimbrey, Nick Hallett, myself, and Les Brown. And basically, it's people from around the world with amazing breakthrough stories.
Right.
And Johnny Wimbrey, if you don't know nothing about Johnny Wimbrey, he was Les Brown, one of his first students that he did one-on-one coaching, one-on-one training.
Right.
So I met Johnny, we were speaking in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We was going through the elevator, and I heard Les brag about Johnny Wimbrey.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody knows Tiki, you think, well, what makes Johnny Wimbrey so special?
Right.
And so when me and Johnny met each other in the elevator, we kind of rolled up, and I said, you're Johnny Wimbrey. He said, so you're Tiki. I said, yeah. And he says, I got something for you. And I said, what do you have? He said, I heard about your story.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to participate in my breakthrough book?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah. So that's kind of how it came about.
Just that simple.
That simple.
Well, I think what I find fascinating about the story itself is that when we decided to do this show in particular,
mm-hmm.
the Tiki Factor had as a concept. When did that start?
Well, working with Mr. Brown, he just said, Tiki, your name is unique and it stands out, so we need to brand you.
Mm-hmm.
He says, the Tiki Factor.
It just sounds like him.
And then I said, yeah, it sounds good. He says, yeah. He says, your name, it's memorable. He said, that's it. And so that's what we went with.
Okay. But before we get into that, which is the heart and soul of what this evening's show is about, I want people to really have an opportunity to get to know you. So,
okay.
Obviously, I asked you to send me some pictures.
Right.
Didn't tell you why. So I'm just going to need you to trust me. It's going to be fine. But what I want to do is to tell your story a different way. And as we talk about the Tiki Factor and what that means for every person who's watching and every person who will learn what that means, is to make sure we know who you are. So, answer the question in 1 minute or less. Who is Tiki Davis?
Well, overcomer.
Okay.
A survivor. A visionary. Tell him he can't do it, and he will.
Right.
So he's a guy that just has a chip on his shoulder. That's it. It's just a survivor.
And that was your first choice of words,
mm-hmm.
right? Why survivor?
Well, you've heard the stories of humble beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
You heard the story of mom and dad not being there. So you heard all those things. But my life was so bad that people used to try to make excuses why he wouldn't succeed.
Right.
And I got offended by that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make excuses why I can't succeed. Show me, tell me how I could. So people wrote me off early on.
Okay.
And so that's what, made the drive, because no one even seen this kid to make it, and I wanted to prove everybody wrong.
And yet you have, and we'll share how you learned or how you made it. But this picture's a little blurry.
Okay.
But this picture you chose because it was very important to you. Why is that?
Well, that picture is one of 2 baby pictures that I own.
Okay.
And, my dad actually had these pictures of me, and he gave me this picture, and he told a story that, I was playing with that horse by the refrigerator, and he came home. He actually left me home alone.
Mm-hmm.
So just imagine being 8 or 9 months, years old, and months old, on the floor by yourself. And when my dad came home, it was a big tarantula right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, man, I could have been dead. But, that was the story behind that picture.
Now, but you chose this picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when you sent it, you said that's really the only baby picture that you have.
Right.
Now, how did you come across this picture? Who kept it? Who saved it?
Well, my dad, his name is Frank Coulter.
Mm-hmm.
He lives in Roswell, New Mexico, and I didn't really grow up with him very much, but I always knew where he was at. And, his wife passed away about 7 years ago, so we reconnected.
Mm-hmm.
So I became pretty much his caretaker,
mm-hmm.
and he had these pictures, and he busted out this photo album, so I started seeing stuff that I never seen before.
When did you first see this picture?
I saw that picture maybe about 7 years ago.
Wow. And how old were you then?
36.
Okay. And so at this point, you're seeing this baby picture for the first time.
Yes.
How did it make you feel?
It made me feel like, I came from somewhere.
Right.
I was a baby just like everybody else. I just never seen a baby picture.
Had never seen a baby picture
No.
until then.
No.
Your entire young adult life,
No.
adult life.
No.
Now, do you think that? Now we'll get to kind of the story behind that, but did that seem normal to you, not having seen any pictures of yourself as a kid, or was it just based on your circumstances?
Yeah, based on myself. I never thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Often wondered, maybe want to pop up or something, but who would I was going to ask to have a picture?
Right.
And my mom, she wasn't around anymore, and I never even thought to ask my dad for a picture because I just wanted a relationship with him.
Right. So then we move on to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's one cool hat. Let's
Yes.
just put that out there.
Yeah.
Do you remember how old you were?
Probably about the same age, maybe 10 months.
Okay. And did you get this picture around the same time?
Yeah, actually the same day.
So you got both of those pictures the same day?
Yeah.
In your 30s?
Yeah.
First two baby pictures you ever seen of yourself?
Right.
Did you feel like at this point that there was a connection to who you are through these pictures? I mean, in terms of your personality?
Yeah, you could see it. You could see this kid or this baby, had the lights in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He was just different. He was going to be special.
Right.
So when I looked at it, if I had a son, I was like, man, you can have something to reference.
Right.
And, that's kind of how I felt. I felt like that was my baby, and it was me.
So tell us a little bit about your mom, because you said she wasn't as involved in your life. Why? Tell us about her, who she was as a woman.
Well, my mom was a very giving woman. She lived a fast life, and what I mean by that, she was into the drugs, she was into prostitution, but she loved her kids.
Mm-hmm.
And her kids I have an older brother that's 3 years older than me. He's half white.
Mm-hmm. What was that like?
It was okay, because, back then, white was right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So he was a half-breed kid, so Kevin, that was the name of my brother, he got a little special treatment, or that's how I saw when I was a kid.
Right.
And it was okay, he was my brother.
Now tell us how, because you write about this and not in Breakthrough, but in your
Little Texas.
Get out of here.
Yes.
And so, what's your middle name?
Frank.
So middle name is after your dad.
Yes.
And you're named after a hotel.
Yes.
When did you find that out?
She told me. I just asked her, how'd you find that name? And she said, I was mad at your dad, so it was a Tiki hotel in Amarillo that's probably still there. That was real popular.
Right.
So she just named me after the hotel.
But having
the weasel, Ricky Tiki Tavi, they used to say that or whatever, or the teacher would say Tiki, or you could never get away with anything because that name stood out.
Mm-hmm.
Tiki did it. It couldn't be Michael or Rick because there's probably 4 or 5 kids in the school with that same name.
Right.
But Tiki, man, you're guilty before it even starts. Yeah.
So something happened to you when you were 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Changed your life.
Right.
You oftentimes describe it as the moment that could have ended your life.
Right.
Tell us about it.
Well, at 9 years old, it was a typical day in the neighborhood. Well, the projects. And, Mom had rolled a date for money.
What does that mean?
Well, roll a date means, she was a prostitute at times, and her and my aunt had took money from this man.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just taking the money they agreed for, they robbed him for all his money.
Mm-hmm.
And they had left the scene, and this gentleman came back to really kill my mother and kill my aunt, but found me instead.
Wow.
And, tried to take my life, which turned out stabbed me in the neck with a screwdriver.
Wow.
And, beat me up pretty bad.
How did you get away?
Well, by the grace of God, first and foremost, but, just the will to survive. I ended up rolling over, was under the bed, and, just hid up under the bed till he actually left.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he left, I got up and I walked away.
Right. And so at that point when you're laying there, you're 9, you're under the bed, bleeding.
Right.
Why do you mentioned in the book about how you remember his boots, you remember how he smelled,
right?
You obviously remember what he said and what he did, but what did you do after that?
Well, I remember his boots because I just really could see up under the bed. Basically, what I could see is the bottom of his blue jeans, and he had on snakeskin boots. So my whole life, I went through life with a phobia of snakeskin boots. Because I seen the boots from up under the bed, and I could see the boots run away. So I seen those boots. So sometime, not knowing as I got older, I would see snakeskin boots and have a reaction.
Wow.
Nobody else knew it, but I did.
So what happened though? I mean, did you call the police?
No. I never called the police. I just went next door, and the neighbors called the police.
Okay.
Because this young kid, or everybody knew me, and I was bleeding to death. So in the neighborhood, the projects, word travels fast.
Right.
So the ambulance that was there, my mom showed up, and everything.
What did she say?
Well, she showed up on the scene, and she saw me on the gurney, and she knew I was street smart, so she said, "Don't say nothing."
Wow.
She said, "Don't say nothing." She didn't even say, "Are you all right? Are you okay?" She knew I was a survivor, so eventually she knew I was going to be okay, but she went straight to survival mode. That's all she knew, and she said, "Don't say nothing."
Did you?
No, I didn't say anything until I wrote my book.
Okay. And that's the first time you really talked about it?
Yeah, and the first time I ever told the truth about it.
Wow. So what was the story then? Like, what was the cover story?
Well, the cover story, when they asked me, I just told the detective, and his name was Detective Price, and he came to me and he says, "Tiki, what happened in that apartment complex?" And I said, "Somebody tried to come in and rob us." And he started laughing. He says, "Nobody robs the projects."
Right. Because that is true.
He said, "No one robs the projects." So I was like, well, they came here to steal our stuff. But we didn't have anything to steal.
Right.
But my unconditional love for my mother allowed me to protect her, even though my life was on the line.
At 9 years old.
At 9 years old.
And that unconditional love is powerful. Was there a time when that was tested?
Never. Because once I was in the room, beat up, stabbed up, already, got attention. My mom showed up a few days later, and she broke down, and she cried, and she says, "Baby, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Right. And so I turned into the parent. I started comforting her because I knew she was hurting for what happened to her son. So I didn't want my mom to hurt anymore. So I never held a grudge. I never held it against her. I never was mad about it.
Right.
I'm still not.
And so as that happens at 9, you go on and you sent this picture, which I thought was absolutely delightful. Did you do the artwork yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
About how old are you in this picture?
Maybe like 10.
Okay.
10. And the drawing is, that was the first time I ever won anything. And it was a fire prevention contest. And it was Fire Prevention Week. And what's so cool about this, I won, and then my daughter, she won fire prevention when she was in the same grade.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So I thought that was cool. And yeah, so that was it. That's the first time I ever won anything.
Now, your daughter's name, what's her name?
Her name is Brooklyn.
And how old is she now?
She's 11.
And so when you all are about the same age, she wins the same contest that you won.
Yes.
Did you help her with her project?
Of course I did. Of course I did.
Did she see this picture before she went to compete?
Oh, yeah, she sent it. She said, "You look funny."
And so all of this is about, so what was the theme? Like, what was the contest about? Like, how to prevent fires?
Yeah, how to prevent fires, or what are you doing, or whatever.
Tiki, there's a lot of fire going on in there.
I know, and I don't know how
are we preventing all of that?
Well, I'm gonna tell you a little story what I used to do.
Okay.
Well, in the projects, what I used to do, and the police department and fire department don't come get me now. I used to be the one
the statutes run. You're probably go ahead.
I used to set the trash cans on fire.
Okay. Yeah, we're okay. Let me think. Do the math. Yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Yeah. to see him show up. But yeah.
Right. And so now you're in, well, I guess junior high back then. So they call it middle school.
No. Elementary.
No, you're still in
elementary school.
So what's Tiki like now as he approaches junior high? What type of kid were you?
I was just ambitious, hungry, a fighter.
Okay.
The reason why I was saying hungry and a fighter, because typical days I went to school, I was hungry.
Mm.
I was hungry,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't hungry for education. I was hungry for food,
Mm-hmm.
because we didn't have food at home all the time.
Right.
So sometimes I would have to go to the neighbor's house.
Mm.
Sometimes I have to go to a friend's house.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll be walking down the street with a bowl and a spoon because the lady says you can have food, just bring your own dishes.
Wow.
And
wow, that's powerful.
and then the fighting part came because we didn't always have the nicest clothes,
Mm-hmm.
the nicest shoes. So they were like, "Oh, Tiki that." So
Right.
I would rebel and I would beat up the kid that was picking on me
Mm-hmm.
or saying something.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty. Then after a while, I didn't have that problem anymore.
Because you beat everybody.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's
and
right.
That's what it is.
I'm like 100 and 0. Really? No.
100 and 0.
Yeah, really.
You know what? I'm not mad at that either.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, okay, and so your mom and your brother, still just the three of you?
Yes.
Okay. And your relationship with your brother is still solid?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, is your mom still struggling? Is she still dealing with struggles herself at that point, or no?
Yeah, she was still struggling at this point in her life. You know, she was. I think she always wanted to find love,
Mm-hmm.
so she struggled with that, and different relationships, different addictions. And what she did was she never had peace in her own life because she was always serving other people.
Mm-hmm.
So when she robbed people or sell drugs or whatever she had to do to get her fix, she was always giving the money away.
Mm-hmm.
So she never had a lot of money. She made a lot of money, but once she made the money, she was giving it away
Right.
to her sisters, to her boyfriends,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. So she was a giver.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she was trying to buy love.
Right.
She was empty.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why she would give it, because it didn't mean nothing. So she was hoping that she'd give to receive the physical.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I seen it.
And so then we get to Tiki at this age. Now, how old are you in this picture?
About 15.
And you thought you were a man back then, I guess.
Yeah, I got that gold chain on, as you can see.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you're in high school.
Uh-huh.
Now sports football specifically becomes a big part of your life. Now, is that long before you get to high school, or?
Yeah, well, when we got to high school, late junior high, like 9th grade, I was in the boys' home. So that's when I started to excel a little bit, because that's the first time in my life that I actually get to make it to practice.
Mm-hmm.
And have a ride and be consistent.
Right.
So this is about the first time I started having some consistency in my life. Mm-hmm. And so, once you have some consistency, you're going to excel in anything.
Right.
So I got to go to practice, I got to train,
Mm-hmm.
I got the tutor, and I got the help that I needed. So I started excelling in every aspect of my life.
Right.
Just not on the field.
Okay. And so when you are approaching graduation, there's another defining moment in
Mm-hmm.
your life. Tell us about that. What happens then?
Well, it was a situation when a little bit after this, probably a year later, found myself, just typically doing what kids that age do, and you found yourself on the wrong side of the law for something that you didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to pay dearly for it. Really ended up costing me my whole senior year.
How's that?
At the time, I didn't know how devastating it was going to affect my life.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was a life-changing moment.
Right.
Because at 17, you just think it's a slap on the wrist, and you're going to be able to go on with your life,
Mm-hmm.
just like the next day or the next week.
Right.
And that's what the coaches and administrators and everything thought was going to be too. Like, Tiki, don't worry about it. Just say you did it. We'll get out of trouble, and you're going to play football. And that's what I did,
Mm-hmm.
and it ended up screwing up my life.
Now, how old were you?
I was 17.
Okay, so this is your senior year.
Yes,
And without giving it away, you were accused of something that you didn't do.
that's right.
And so, when you say you admitted it, how
Mhm.
did it change your life
Well,
initially?
Well, initially it was just like, okay, let me admit it to get it over with.
Right.
So I can go play football. So they could have told me anything, put it in front of me or whatever. But that's why I preach to these kids, like we spoke to the kids earlier today. I said the most important thing is your education.
Mm-hmm.
So when they put the documents in front of me, I just signed it because I couldn't even read it.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
They said, just sign it.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay.
So at that point, you're a senior in high school and you're struggling with reading.
Yes.
And did anybody know that?
No.
How did you get around it?
Well, when you grow up like I grew up, you learn how to shield things.
Mm-hmm.
So you overcompensate. So my memory was impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't read the book, but I could memorize the whole book.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because I can hear the teacher read the book. I knew it.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? So that's what I was. So I was weak in one area, but I was strong in another area.
Wow. And so now you're at 17. You're copping a plea. But tell us about the first night you spent in jail.
Well, the first night that I spent in jail was actually it was a lonely night, and you're just sitting in there because you're crying and you're thinking like, how did I get myself in it? Not a sense that you're feeling sorry for yourself, but like I said, you wanted to be not a statistic. You wanted to be somebody.
Right.
Now that's in question, and all the people that started investing in you, you feel like you're letting them down. And you know, like, wrong place, wrong time.
Right.
So even if I was accused or not accused, but if I was in the right place at the right time, that wouldn't even happen.
Right.
So, like, you know, so be where you're supposed to be.
Of course.
So if I was where I was supposed to be, that never would have happened.
Right.
So I always look at that as God was trying to get my attention then. I just had to pay attention. See what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm not one of those ones that, okay, this. I'm not the victim. It was a learning experience.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
And so you cop the plea.
Right.
Your life changes.
Right.
Tiki Davis, if I remember correctly in the book, you were a football star. You were headed to, I'm sure, D1 school.
Right.
Definitely pros, right?
In my mind, I was.
And then now you're in prison. Or
Right.
in county jail? Or
County
prison?
jail. No,
Okay.
I never went to prison.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in county jail. How many months?
6 months.
Okay. And then that's supposed to be the end of it, right?
Yeah, that's supposed to be the end of it. No, not quite.
What happened after that?
Well, you know, it just continued on and on and on, you know, probation. And, you know, for 10 years.
10 years of probation.
10 years of probation.
What was the sentence hanging over your head?
Assault.
Okay.
You know.
But how many years?
How
many years?
23 years.
So 23 years and was hanging over your head.
Yeah.
And you had to complete 10 years of probation.
Well, the full sentence was 99 years hanging over my head if I didn't complete the probation. So if I was to violate this probation by any terms, I could get 99 years.
Holy cow.
So out of the 100-year sentence that I could possibly get, I did 23 years probation, jail, or whatever it was.
And so now we get to this picture. Boy, I'm not going to talk about your big head and that, but God, I tell you, your head is big. So, and you mean mugging.
Yeah.
And that's what, in the 90s?
No, yeah, that's 1999.
Okay. And so you are, is this college?
Yeah, that's my freshman year in college.
So but you make it to college.
Oh, yeah, I'll make it.
Okay, so what's happening between high school and college?
Well, what happened was I went to go start working at this dealership. And I was working hard, making $7.25 an hour washing cars. And the owner of the dealership took notice of me washing cars, and he figured out who I was. And one day we had a conversation, and basically he just said, Tiki, you know, man, I did a little checking on you, man. I wish I knew you earlier. I could have helped you, but
he knew about your record.
Yeah, he knew about
probation, rather.
Yeah, he knew all about it. Everybody knew about it in town. But he was a guy that could help. He was a guy that could help. So that's what he did. He helped. And his name is Steve Lake, and he paid for my college education.
Wow.
And the only rule that he had was basically, if you pass, I pay. And if you don't pass, you pay yourself.
Okay. And so you end up at what college?
Sorrel State University.
Where, we don't know where that is.
I know.
North Carolina.
I know. It's in Alpine, Texas.
Okay. All right. So now, but you're playing football. And what was your position?
Running back.
Okay. And excelling?
Yeah, I did pretty good.
Okay.
Scored a few touchdowns.
And there was a time I think you talked about where you almost didn't finish college. You almost decided to quit. What was going on there?
Well, it was just because, you know, whenever the athletic part of college or anything from a young black kid or an athlete perspective is, you play the game to go to the next level.
Right.
So when I realized I wasn't good enough or it wasn't working out for me that way, I felt like the reason I went to college was to go to the next level. So when I knew I wasn't going to the next level, I felt like, okay, I've done everything I need to do here in college. So going to college wasn't the education for me at that time.
Right.
it was this dream that I was still chasing. I was trying to make up for that lost year of high school.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I hadn't matured enough to understand that this education is going to take you farther.
Right.
So I was living, even though at this time I'm 21, I was still fighting that demon of 17.
Mm-hmm.
Let me show them what I could have been.
Right.
When that ship has already sailed.
Gotcha. And so, but then something happened. So, do you finish? You finished college?
Yes, I finished.
Okay. And then, if I remember correctly, you went on to get your master's.
Yes.
But you said that you were still struggling finding a job. Now you got 2 degrees and still struggling.
Yeah, but like I really don't want to talk about that part of it. But I was still struggling because that stuff was just hanging over my head.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it was just that they didn't honor the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So I never complained about it. So if they would have did what they were supposed to do,
they meaning, who do you mean?
The state of Texas.
Gotcha.
The state of Texas didn't honor the original agreement.
Okay.
So I was still trying to prove myself, not only to myself, but prove myself to the state. That, hey, man, I'm a good person. I didn't do what I said I do. You just need to let me go. And they failed to do it for a number of years.
Okay.
You know.
And so then, let's see, we get to here. Now, this is a whole headshot. What's going on here?
Well, I thought I was going to be a movie star.
Okay.
And, I got a few big breaks in Hollywood. And they told me, they said, if you want to be a movie star, Tiki, you got to get you some headshots. And so that was one of my first headshots.
Okay. And so you mentioned that you had a couple of breaks.
Right.
What was the biggest break for you?
Well, as far as the movie industry, the break was at that time, it was the movie called Friday Night Lights.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that. What was your role?
I played Dallas Carter, team captain.
So did you come in? Wait a minute. So how does that happen? You just end up, okay, I'm in a movie now. How did that happen?
What happened was one time I was in Odessa during spring break getting a haircut. And I was in my buddy's barbershop, and, everybody go in there and you talk and yap or whatever. So everybody was in there looking for the star of the city, Boobie Miles. And so I was in there getting a haircut. In my mind, I was the second coming of Boobie Miles. I was like, man, if you're looking for Boobie, you got Tiki sitting in the chair. What you need to find Boobie for? And then they was like, Boobie's on his way, Trap's on his way. So me and Boobie are good friends. So eventually Boobie shows up, and then I said, hey, man, I want to be in the movie too. So they said, all right, if you think you're so good, why don't you just go out there and try out? So I went out there to the football stadium and tried out. And they gave me a role as an extra.
Okay.
And so that extra was extra pay, like $150 a day. But I thought I was a movie star.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but did you eventually get a speaking role?
Yes, it was an open audition one day after working on the set night and day for about a month. The director, Peter Berg, kind of told all us African-American kids, he said, y'all go get dressed and put on this Carter outfit. And I was a little disgruntled. Imagine me being disgruntled. So I grabbed Peter Berg, the director, and I said, Peter. He goes, yeah, man. I says, why in the world do you want me to go put on this Dallas Carter outfit? And I've been doing all this extra work as a Permian Panther. He says, if you want to be in the movie, this is your best chance. He says, all that Permian stuff is just going to be atmosphere. I said, really? So he says, but go get dressed, I'll get you something. So when somebody tell me something, I believed it.
Right.
So I believed that he was going to get me something. So we went to go get dressed. He goes into the locker room scene. So apparently he told everybody the same thing he told me. So he says, who's the craziest guy in here who can get a football team hype? So I stood up and said, you told me outside. He goes, man, I didn't tell you nothing. And so I felt disappointed, so I kind of sat down, and my heart was broken. I was screaming inside. I wanted to really do something to him, but I didn't. So this other guy started screaming, and he kind of sounded like a girl. He said, this is about 30% of what I'm looking for.
Right.
And then another guy stood up, and he said, let's see what you got. And he started cussing. Then the director said, man, this is a PG-13 movie. And so I'm listening to this the whole time. So eventually I stood up, and I started screaming. I said, let's go, baby. Let's go. Don't be afraid to get your name in the paper. And I kind of screamed. Well, I screamed real loud. I said, woo! And then Peter Berg says, you're signed. That quick. Just like that. He said, cut, signed. I had to sign a contract and everything just right there on the spot.
Wow.
So, my pay went up too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And so now you are chasing Hollywood dreams.
Yes.
And does that shift at some point?
Yeah, it kind of shifts because I'm still in the criminal justice system, and I start having this success.
So then, because in your book, you talk about your transition into working in the oil and gas industry and becoming an entrepreneur.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how that transition happened, particularly in entrepreneurship,
Well,
in an industry that's probably not a whole lot of people that look like us.
well, here it was. Like I said, and the working. So when I first started my first oil field job with 2 degrees from college, was $13 an hour.
Wow.
$13 an hour. That's what they paid me. So, but me, I'm like, all right, cool. But they said just start at $13 an hour as an engineer, a degree, master degree. I said, okay. They said, but in 90 days, if you learn this job, we train you, and you learned it in 90 days, then we'll get you a truck, a cell phone, a computer, and we'll get you $65,000 salary. I said, okay, I can do that. So that's what happened. And then the 90 days came. I passed all the tests. They gave me what they said they was good, and the rest is history, as far as that company's concerned.
And so you mentioned that that then becomes where your passion is, at least at that point, as far as being an engineer and in the business. How does it expand to consulting and some of the other things that you've been doing?
Well, it was a situation. Say I worked there for operator, which is operator is the guys that go out and do the completion for the wells for the big oil companies, for the Chevrons, the XTOs, the Exxons, the Chevrons, or whatever. So I had got laid off from a job because it was a recession. Stuff started going down in 2009. So I was having a hard time getting employed again because of my background. So I had got this big job to be a district engineer for another service company. And then they disqualified me from the position. Day before I was supposed to start, they called me in on a Sunday. I had already signed my offer letter. It was like $125,000 total package, benefits. I had an 8-month-old daughter, so I was happy. So just imagine you're about to start the job on Monday, and they call you in on a Sunday and take it away.
Wow.
Take it away.
Wow.
So I felt like Reuben Hurricane Carter.
Wow.
When he said I can't do the time. I almost broke. That's probably the first time in my life I almost broke, because I was like, man, what else do I do?
And all because I was still chasing you.
That's it.
The past was still chasing
That was it. So I was like, okay. So it kind of fueled me to just become an entrepreneur. So I started a mobile car wash business. So I didn't go right back into the oil and gas. I said, man, because my heart was broken. It was like I didn't know what to do. So I started a mobile car wash business. So I was the guy driving around with a pickup truck that said Touchdown Mobile Wash, with a 5-gallon water bucket with a power washer. And people was laughing and saying, hey, look at that guy, Tiki. He got a master's degree and he washes cars for a living.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what they were thinking, but not understanding it's a young black man with a business. And and I was making probably about the same amount of money that I was making as an engineer washing cars. But in my mind, I knew it was more for me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I said, I just need somebody to give me an opportunity, and I'm going to show them.
Okay, and so at some point you make your first million, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, when does that happen, and how do you get there?
Well, really, when I made my first $1 million, it was by accident.
How's that?
Because I didn't even know. Because I just kept on working, and I kept my head down. What do I mean by that? I didn't count the money. I didn't count the checks. I just got them and put them in the bank. And so, actually, how I really found out, I had a bookkeeper. Just imagine a kid from the ghetto with a bookkeeper.
Right.
And she says, Tiki, you make too much money. You need to go buy truck. So that's what she said. So, I said, huh? She goes, yeah, you make too much money. So that's how it happened. And I went into the consulting business, and I had the blessed opportunity to work for one of the independent, largest oil catters in the world, Clayton Williams Jr. He gave me an opportunity, and I ran his whole completion quality control outfit for 7 years. And I did that for a 7-year period from the time I was 29 to I was 37. And he eventually sold that company for $2.8 billion.
Wow.
And I was over the whole quality control aspect of the business. So that's kind of how I was able to get financial freedom working for that man. He blessed me.
And so tell us about Tiki now. Who's that guy?
Oh man. Oh man, he's good looking, man. Man. Well,
here we go.
well. This guy here is just a man.
Mm-hmm.
This is that boy that got stabbed in the neck that made it. This is a guy that wants to go share his story with the world and tell everybody it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Les Brown said, it's possible. Then I told him it's a must because it's possible you won't.
Right.
It's possible you won't. So if I wasn't to fight for my name, I'd still be there. If I would have just laid there and died, I wouldn't be here. So this guy here, or the man that's here, is the guy that wants to empower the young man to know it's possible. It's a must. And that's pretty much who he is.
And so the book that's out now, which is Breakthrough, and the one that's coming out, what made you decide to put pen to paper to tell your story? Was there a moment that says, you know what, I really need to tell my story?
Yes, the story is necessary. The story is important.
Okay.
Why is it important? Is because this story ain't never been told before. Because it has so many layers of failure, achievement, failure, achievement, grace, mercy, second chances, third chances, fourth chances, and perseverance. See, one thing that I never did, I never questioned God, ever. I never felt sorry for myself. I never said, why me? The prayer I used to pray to God was never to be rich or whatever status quo, because really $1 million is not rich anymore.
Right.
So it was just to say, hey man, if me and my family went out to eat every day, I wouldn't suffer in any area of my life.
Right.
That was my prayer, and God did that for me. So me and him are good. And the only other prayer that I used to pray every day for God was, I said, clear my name. I said, clear my name. And he did that for me. So me and God is even. The reason why I wanted to put pen to paper to answer the question was, I'm about legacy building now. What lives on after me? What's if somebody is a kid that can read my story and be inspired by? Because, like Mr. Brown told me, you have a responsibility to the next generation. It's not about you. Nobody cares how great your story is. No one cares how much money you made. They can care about how they can see themselves in your story.
Right.
It's about the people. And that's what I'm doing. It's not about me. I'm good. Now it's about helping the next generation.
So what is the Tiki Factor?
The Tiki Factor is acronyms of my name.
Okay.
That
T is for what?
The T stands for total commitment.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is total commitment to anything that you're going through or whatever you're doing. So if you're an attorney, you got to make a total commitment to doing that job.
Right.
And then you got to master that before you became judge.
Right.
So I'm telling anybody, if you've been a better mother, a better father, a better teacher, a better nurse, a better veterinarian, master that before you move to the next level. So make a total commitment to where you are in your life, and then you move on.
Why did you decide to call it the Tiki Factor?
Well, like I said, it was a joint venture with me and Mr. Brown, and the Tiki Factor, it stands out because my life is a factor. It matters. So Tiki, it's different, and the factor is like powerful. It's a factor, a force to be reckoned with. So that's why we decided to call it that.
Okay. What's the I?
The I is imagination.
Okay.
And the imagination, I tell everybody when I speak, live from your imagination and not your history.
Yes.
Because you're not your history. You're not your history, because if I was my history, I would have died in the prison cell like my mother. You know, I would have been able to, I would have quit school. I would have just been on the block. You know, I wouldn't have did the things that I wanted to do if I wouldn't have lived from my imagination, because no one could see what I seen inside.
Right.
Because everybody set the bar too low for me. And so what I wanted to do, you can't set my bar, because I have this own imagination of where I'm going.
Right.
So I tell everybody in this dream and this hope, I'm not talking about this where you can look across a room and see it. You can't see this dream with your eyes. This is the dream that you only can see with your heart.
Right.
So that's the imagination.
And then the K?
The K is kindred spirits. this is really key. You know, if you're around people that have bad attitude, toxic spirits, you know, not thinking that you can get to the next level, always talking negative about somebody else, or he think he's this or that because he made money, but they wasn't in the trenches with you. What I mean by in the trenches, when I was doing them 18-hour days in the oil field on location or doing all that work, I don't need you to come and say anything negative about what the work I put in.
Right.
So I need to be around people. I just want to be around people that's uplifting, supporting what I'm doing. That's not me being selfish. That's just the ore that I want to be around me. If you're not supporting me, you're hurting me. So I can't control what the outside world do, but I can control my inner circle.
Right.
And that's what I want to do.
Okay. And so when you say this, when you talk about this with people and kindred spirits, is it just a matter of putting yourself in situations where you're surrounded by good energy? Or is it more so just the person? Because a person can give you good energy, but it may not be sincere, or it may not be consistent.
Yeah. So it's really, I got a good discernment on people. So I kind of know if it's phony or fake.
Okay.
You know, and sometimes I kind of, you know, sometimes keep your friends closer and your enemies closer.
Right.
So sometimes you know that's not a kindred spirit, but you're watching them.
Right.
You're watching them. But genuinely, you know those people that, you know, I'm 41 years old now, so I know the people that I feel that has my best interest.
And then the final I.
It's probably one of the most important things anybody can do in their life is invest in themselves.
Okay.
You know, it's just kind of like I seen this quote Chris Rock had the other day. He says, if your car breaks down and you're sitting there with your hazard lights on, no one's going to stop for you. But if you start trying to push your car yourself, how many people pull over and help you push the car?
That's right. That's so true.
So that's the essence of investing in yourself. And that's kind of what I did. So Tiki didn't get to this top of this mountain by himself by no stretch of the imagination. But I started that climb alone. So as I was climbing this mountain, my step-parents, Sam and Joyce, helped me.
Okay.
My mother helped me because she gave me life. The Mr. Lake that sent me to college helped me. The oil company that gave me my first job at $13 helped me. The guy that sold me my first car wash machine helped me. Mr. Clayton Williams that gave me my first consulting job helped me. So it was a process. No one got there alone, pulled me up. And because first, I started by investing in myself.
Outstanding. So the book is called The Breakthrough, and you're featured in this. Obviously, Johnny, Nick, you, and Les are the features for this, and there's some other stories in there as well. If you could describe this particular project in 4 words, what would those 4 words be? They can be individual words, or it could be a phrase. 4 words.
Powerful. 1 word. Inspirational.
Okay.
Breathtaking.
All right.
And humbleness.
When the book first arrived, how did you feel?
I felt proud. I felt like I birthed this, you know, into existence. And then, you know, when I seen the cover, the rose busting through the concrete, you know, it was just like, man, you know, it says, you know, hey, I blossomed. And I was just glad to be a part of this. Is my first book, even though it's a feature role, but it's my first. I always remember this one.
Right.
You know.
And so today, I want to really talk about today because people probably, they're not following you. I hope they will follow you on Facebook. And what's your Instagram handle?
The Instagram is the Tiki Factor.
Okay. And all together?
Yes, it's the Tiki Factor.
And then it's just your name on Facebook, Tiki Davis.
Yes, Tiki Davis on Facebook.
But today, got an opportunity for you to go to Jail North.
Yes.
And to speak with a group of young men, all high school age kids who are in custody now.
Right.
And as we walked through, one of the first things you said was that, ooh, this jail is way cleaner than they are in Texas.
Yeah.
But then when you had a chance to talk to them, what did you talk about?
Well, I just...
And I don't mean for you to go over everything, but you had an impact today that was powerful. Probably more so than you probably planted more seeds than you can ever imagine. As far as your communication and how you communicated that with the young men. But it was also was it special for you for any other reason?
Well, actually, that's my first time back in a jail in 23 years.
Wow.
Maybe 24 years. So when I went back in there, when I looked in the eyes of those young men, I saw myself. I saw myself, these 16, 17-year-old boys that's fighting for their life at such an early age. So what I wanted to give them was hope. I want to give them hope that, man, if you want to see somebody that made it, and I didn't want to sugarcoat it. I wanted to give it to them raw because it wasn't easy. And it's not going to be easy, but I wanted them to know if the judge or the lawyer or somebody gives them a chance, please take the chance and make the right decision, because in the criminal justice system, you always don't get a second chance.
And so walking in there for the first time since you went to jail,
right?
Like, how did you feel? Did you feel a certain kind of way?
I felt like I felt like I didn't feel bad. I felt good because I felt like I was living my purpose. I felt like I put myself in a position where I can come back and help. And I felt good about that.
Right.
I felt that I'm coming to a different state. And I'm reaching out like it was like ordained. These steps was ordained to come and help these boys.
Right.
Because like when we skated up, we didn't know which ones we're going to see. But, you know, these special 8 boys, and I could see in their eyes that I gave them some hope and some life. So I just felt like I was doing my part.
So what's next? So this is the coming soon part. So you mentioned that you have written your complete life story.
Yeah. Right now I have my agents. We're shopping to major publishers, major houses, and the top ones, you know. I won't give it away, but it's coming out soon. We're talking to Random House. We're talking to HarperCollins. We're talking to Hatchet Books. We're talking to all the major players in the game, and we have some interest. And we're waiting on offers now. So we'll see how that plays out.
What emotion would you say that you felt when you finished the first draft of your book? What was the first thing you felt?
Well, when I finished that first draft, honestly, I went into a depression.
Really?
Yeah. I couldn't even, if you read the draft, only like 4 or 5 chapters have titles. Because I couldn't name the rest. Because I was that emotionally drained when I read it, because I didn't realize how tough my life was.
Really?
I didn't realize it until I did the book. So I think if how people see it or whatever, like, hey, man, you should have been this, that, or another, I could see why they would say something like that.
Right.
Now, because when I did the book, I was like, man, my life was tough. Because you can't see it going through it. But
that's right.
But when you look back, you understand it was just God's grace and His hand in your life. So I know I'm here for a reason, because He didn't bring me through that to say, Tiki, go sit down now. I got a great responsibility now.
What advice would you give to someone who is in the process of or thinking about writing a book?
Do it.
That's more autobiographical.
Do it.
Okay. What else?
Because like the best stories are in the graveyard.
That's deep. Say that again. The best stories are in the graveyard. What does that mean?
Well, what I mean by that is a lot of those people wish they would have wrote a book or wish they would have told a story, and they died with their stories.
Wow.
They died with their stories. And I didn't want to be that guy.
Right.
So now if I die or anything happens, my story lives on. My legacy lives on. So no one has to tell me who I was, because I told my own story. And I'll give you a quote from Viola. She told me, I was visiting
Wait a minute. Viola?
Yes.
Like our girl Viola?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Viola told me one time, she says, Tiki, when you write your story, and I'm going to do it in my Viola voice. She says, Tiki, when you write your story, if people are concerned about what you write, They should have treated you better.
Mm. I'm going to need you to say that again, sir. Say that again. Because, wow. Say that again.
She says, Tiki, when you write your story, people shouldn't be concerned about what you write. They should have treated you better when you write your story.
Indeed. And so, movie possibly coming soon.
Oh, yeah.
And I have question marks. What else?
We did a short film called The Factor. We already have that. And
where can they find? Is that on social media or is
No. We'll put it out there where you can pay to watch it.
Okay.
But right now we have it, and we're using that as a template to shop for major deals.
Okay.
And we got a few major deals in the works with some major studios and some heavy hitters. But sometime in Hollywood, they takes time. But it can happen tomorrow, it can happen next week, or it can happen 2 years from now. But just know it's in production.
Okay. And what's your website?
My website is tikidavis.com.
And how can people, how can people buy the book, or where can they find the book?
Well, you can buy the book on the tikidavis.com.
Okay.
Or you can go to Amazon.
Okay.
And buy it. And if you want to book Tiki, just go to tikidavis.com and hit book Tiki and fill out your information. And, we're available for schools, colleges, churches, whatever. If you just need workshops, whatever you need, we can do it.
And so, you also, let me go back because the last segment, which I didn't tell you about this.
Okay.
So the last segment is called So.
Okay.
And it's called So because I come up with 5 random questions. Could be on anything.
All right.
You don't get any time to think about it.
All right.
First thing that flies into your mind, say it.
All right.
Okay? It's going to be okay.
All right.
All right. This is an easy one. What would you do if you were the one survivor of a plane crash? And you can't look at the question before they
Okay. What would I do if I was the one survivor of a plane crash?
Just you.
Write another book.
Okay, with what?
Just telling my experience, because everybody's going to want to talk to you.
Okay. What else? You're the only person, and you want to write a book.
Yeah.
You're not hungry?
No.
You don't want to eat nothing? You just want to write a book?
Yeah, the sole survivor, yeah, because everybody's going to be coming, so hey, you just got to be ready to tell your story.
Okay. Next question. If you ran away and joined the circus, what would your performance be?
Well, I'd probably have to be the lion.
Okay.
And in that part of the circus, because, just by nature, I want to be the big attraction. So I'll probably be the lion jumping through the fire or whatever.
Okay. The show. Now, you going to let them tame you, though? Because usually there's a lion tamer.
Oh, no. Well, maybe I'll be the strong man then.
Okay. All right. Next question. What is the funniest thing that has happened to you? Oh, stop peeking.
Okay.
That has happened to you recently?
Recently, the funniest thing that happened to me recently. I ain't had too many funny things happen to me recently.
Well, I'll give you a few seconds to think about it.
Let me think. Man. I don't know. That was a tough one.
Okay, what's the funniest thing then? I'm not gonna let you get off that easily. So what's the funniest thing that you've seen, or the funniest thing that you've seen that just really made you have a good belly laugh?
Cam Newton's outfit.
Oh, shots fired. Shots fired. Steve, cut the mic. Cut the mic. Shots fired. You know what though? You know what? I can't even be mad at you because I saw it last night. Went to the game. You have to have a little segue here. It was bad. It was disturbing. It was bad. But what really upset me was when she sent me the screenshot, and I was like, wait, this can't be real. I was like, you. And then she sent me with it like on the screen at the time, and I was just like, but yeah. So it really made you legit laugh.
Yeah, it's laugh like, man. I said, man, this young man is something's going on, but yeah, it was crazy.
Okay. Well, we'll take that. All right. Try to peek.
Okay, all right.
If you were a Star Wars or Star Trek character, who would you be and why?
Chewbacca.
Nobody nobody can understand Chewbacca.
I know, because no one understands me.
Oh my God.
So it's just like, you know, you don't know, but he has to be a good spirit, a good soul, because he's always around.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't understand what he's saying, so his character,
Mm-hmm.
his body language speaks volumes.
Interesting. Okay. And was he your favorite character, period, when you saw Star Wars?
Well, I thought he was Bigfoot, but I was like,
we all thought
yeah.
he was Bigfoot. Like, what is this?
Really, my favorite character was R2B2.
R2D2.
D2, yeah, yeah.
We know
but Chewbacca now
that would be your character.
Moving silence.
Ah.
Moving silence.
Okay. And then the last question. If you could choose one song to play every time you walked into a room for the rest of your life, what song would it be? I mean, when you leave out and walk in, any room you walk into, what is going to be the song that, for the rest of your life now? This is a tough one.
Nah, this is a good song, and I just recently heard it.
Okay.
It's oh man, it's good too. Oh man, and I really love this song. I think it's Billy Ocean or Freddie Jackson.
Oh.
Like, if somebody love you something.
Wait, we keep going. We're gonna figure it out.
Everybody love you. Or maybe it's Luther Vandross.
Ooh.
Let me find it on my phone. Now this is a good song. Yeah. Hold on, let me see if I can.
So it's an old school.
Yeah, so it's an old school jazz. I have an old spirit. I like old R&B, like that kind of music. Freddie Jackson, Billy Ocean. I think it's Freddie Jackson, but let me see. See if I can find it.
Is it slow?
No, it's an upbeat. It's not fast. It's kind of slow. Let me see.
Because there's no. If you're gonna put them all together, you can't lump them all together. Clearly, it would be Big Luther, then Freddie, and then I guess Billy can be in that same space.
No, I don't know. I'll find it. It's like a Freddie Jackson or something. So let me see.
But you heard it and it touched your spirit.
Oh yeah, I could hear that song the rest of my life. That to answer that question, yes. Hold on, let me see.
We got faith in you. I think mine would be. I'm gonna give you a second.
Okay.
Because this is a big deal.
Yeah. Okay.
We need you to find that song. Mine would be. You know what? I never thought about this question.
See, it's tough because you get put on the spot. Yeah, it's tough.
You know what? We talked about this last week. It would have to be hip hop. It would have to be X-Clan. I got to stick with what I know. It would be Funk and Lesson. No, it would be Grand Verbalizer. What time is it? One of the two, but it would have to be something that is in the vein of old school hip hop.
I don't know where it is. How to find it?
Can't find it.
No, but that's a song I like. But
that song is gonna be your personal anthem.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the time that we have left, what I want you to talk about just briefly is what is it that you think is the most powerful part of your story? Like if someone were to read your entire book, The Draft Now, what do you think, without giving away, some of the meatier parts that you really want people to buy the book and read for themselves, but what do you think is the most powerful part of your story? Not necessarily a defining moment. And you can look at it from like an emotional standpoint, like it may make you cry, or it could be powerful from like a moment of triumph in whatever way, however you feel like you want to answer that.
I think the most powerful element of the story combined is this young boy unconditional love for his mother.
Wow. Why is that?
Because in spite of all the circumstances, this guy never pointed the finger at his mother or anybody else. And just imagine, like, at the peak of his life, his dream was to see his mother or his father see him accomplish anything. So I've accomplished all these great things in life, good or bad, but my biological parents never see me do anything.
Really?
Never see me do one thing.
I'm sorry. How is that possible to you?
I don't know.
Wow.
I think my mom went to one football game my whole life. My dad never seen me do anything. My mom never seen me graduate any school or any banquet. anything. So I always had my step parents that, you know, I was adopted by a white family when I was 15.
Now you didn't that just throw that out there for people who didn't know. So
Yeah.
tell us. I don't want to spend too much time on it because I really don't.
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
want people to
Yeah,
read
yeah.
the book.
But
that was obviously life changing.
right, right. But the answer to the question was to not to go there. But like my mother, just imagine like the power of the book. Why you should get it. So at the age of 24, right when I graduated with my first degree, and that was kind of like the fork in the road
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't get a job or whatever, and things just got worse. So I get a call on New Year's Day that your mother is on life support. What do you want to do? The warden of the prison, a women prison, called me and said, your mother's on life support. What you want to do? Do you want to come be with her? So I'm thinking like she's supposed to get out in 6 days from prison. So I said, she's supposed to just get out. What do you mean on life support? They said, do you want to come be with her, yes or no? I said, yeah, we're on our way. I went about 1 mile. The warden called me back and says, Karen has expired.
Wow.
That's how I found out my mother died.
And he used the word expired.
It was a woman.
Or she used the word.
She used the word, says Karen has expired. So what do you want to do about burial arrangements?
Wow.
So this is probably the most powerful part to me is when the lady told me my mom had died. That was the only person that I thought was invincible in my life, because she like was a cat that had 9 lives. You know, I used to have men come to the house and say, where's your mama, with a rifle, and say, I want to shoot it between the eyes. And that was my biggest fear, to wake up that something happened to my mom.
Right.
And now that she was dead, but I didn't believe it until I had to go to Huntsville, Texas, the prison capital of the world, in Texas. All these spooky trees in these big federal prisons and state prisons.
Trees.
Yeah, spooky
You must
trees.
be having the time of it down here with all these trees.
Yeah. So I go there to the Huntsville funeral home and identify my mom's body. And I go in there to the morgue or whatever where they keep the dead bodies. They had her wrapped like a pig in plastic. And her toe was tagged, like you say, the toe tag. She had her toe tag and her ear was tagged with her name on it. But her body was so bloated. My mother was probably about your skin color. She probably was maybe walking around maybe 155 pounds. She weighed 280 pounds. And she was black as this microphone.
Oh my God.
She had cirrhosis of the liver and she didn't get proper medical care. And so she was 44 years old when she passed. She looked like she was every bit of 80. Wow. And she looked real old in her body, and I couldn't even recognize her. And the only way I could recognize her, I looked at her hand where she used to shoot drugs, and she had this scar. And I knew it was her. And that's the first time I probably broke down and cried in 15 years.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not a big cry. So when my mom died, I broke down and cried because I keep a lot of stuff in. So if I cry about something or emotion, it's the brink.
That is powerful.
So that's it.
And so last thing two questions actually. What would you say to a young black man, not necessarily in jail or anything along those lines, but a young black man who is navigating this world, this system that has so much that is designed to keep him down, that is designed to allow systemic racism to flourish? What would you say to a young black man who is navigating, who doesn't and hasn't had some of the blessings that you've had? How do you encourage them to keep pushing in this world that we live in now that's taking a very ugly turn in many ways?
Well, the way I view that situation is this. To me, racism is not a color. I don't think that everybody's out to get the black man. I don't believe that. Because I know in the Carolinas and the Atlantas and the Georgias, it's a lot of black people doing great things. Where I'm from, that doesn't exist. So where I'm from, I couldn't tell you a black man that ever helped me other than a man named Albert Reams. Other than that, and a couple coaches that looked out to me as early in my life. But other than that, it was white people. White people gave me an opportunity and looked at me. So I don't think it's always, the system is not always out to get young black men. And I'm a firm believer that everybody has opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
It may not be the same opportunity, but you got to recognize them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the key. That's what I would tell a young black, young white, young Latino, young Asian. Recognize your opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Like how I got sent to college. I didn't know the guy at the dealership was going to send me to the college.
Mm-hmm.
I was just being the best employee I could be.
Mm-hmm.
I took the best job that I could get with my skill set at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a car washer
Mm-hmm.
until I got something better.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity doesn't knock.
Mm-hmm.
Opportunity is what you find.
Right.
And that's what I believe.
Okay. And so out of the factor itself, the TIKI, which is the
Mm-hmm.
total commitment, the investment, the
Mm-hmm.
kindred spirits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, total commitment, imagination, kindred spirits, and investment.
Uh-huh.
Of those 4 letters, which one is the most important?
Total commitment.
Okay.
Total commitment, because if you make a total commitment to your life,
Mm.
everything else just falls. The total commitment is like the combination of everything.
Right.
It's just the total commitment to your life. And if you do that, you're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's not always success. It's not always financial.
Say that again.
That's what people got to
Right.
understand. Success is not always financial. So you can't judge a man on how much money he has or how much money he doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes good health.
Mm-hmm.
So you think the billionaire that's dying because he needs a heart
Mm-hmm.
cares about money?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? All he wants is a new heart. I'll
Right.
go broke.
Mm-hmm.
And so me, I didn't care about the money.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went to an attorney one time and he says, Tiki, you got money. Why do we have to do this? And I like to quote Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
It says, he who steals my money steals trash.
Mm-hmm.
But he who steals my good name steals my fortune.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so I believe a man's name is the most important asset he has.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell these young kids, if the old saying used to say, Daddy says, don't mess up this name, boy,
Mm-hmm.
that still reigns true.
Absolutely.
With a good name, you have a chance. So that's what I would tell them, don't mess up your good name.
Absolutely. Well, Tiki, thank you. We are honored to have you here all the way from Odessa,
Mm-hmm.
to really pour into the kids the way that you did today was very special. And it was something that I'm sure that's going to have a long-term impact beyond what you will probably ever see. So I appreciate your willingness to really give back to our community here in a meaningful way. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited, and I hope you have gotten as much out of this as we have to have Tiki on the show. Obviously, if you haven't done so, make sure that you check out The Breakthrough, where he is the feature as far as this piece is concerned. And of course, there are others there, but his story is incredibly powerful. So, of course, the other thing is make sure that you check him out at tikidavis.com. As far as his social media, Tiki at Tiki
Yeah.
at the Tiki.
Yeah.
Sorry, say it again. Instagram is
Tiki Factor.
Tiki Factor on Instagram, and of course follow on Facebook
Just
at
Tiki Davis. Yeah.